All right, that was take 3 of the high five intro.
Sometimes it takes us a couple of high fives to really get into the swing of things.
It definitely, it's like how you clap yourself in to record an episode? That's our thing, is just a high five. We went for a high 10 that time though.
We did. Usually it's just like singular high five and then
make this episode doubly as good.
I hope so. Sometimes we need that extra energy and
stuff. It's a tall ask.
Yeah.
So, that was an awkward pause immediately into the episode.
I know. It's what you really
we
want.
both just go.
It's like, who's going to talk next? I mean, that's like when you have 2 people on a pod, right? Like you're always trying to make sure you're not stepping over each other's toes or talking over each other, figuring out who's like going to talk next, especially when it's kind of like you both have stuff that you want to talk about. And then you're like, all right, who rolls into it first? Like who's going to, do most of the talking? Like it's
That's the good thing about an unedited pod like this one. Like I was just watching while I was doing some work, Colin and Samir's latest one, Creator Support. And they had to do different questions if you're not aware of them. They're a channel and they also have a podcast as well about just different news in the creator economy, different content creators on YouTube or different platforms, any business deals they do, or they just field questions about the content creation realm. Mm-hmm. They get questions all the time about like, should I start a second YouTube channel, or how do I monetize my brand or my product or whatever it is? And they were talking about one of their, obviously they're probably most known for their Mr. Beast interview. They did like I think like a 2-hour long interview with him. Yeah. And also like a mini documentary showing, I guess, the world around his warehouse and facility. And
they also did, one where he was opening up his burger joint and stuff. And like, that was a big crazy
documents,
one, apparently.
like behind the scenes. But they were saying with their podcasts, a lot of them are edited because they used to have like a lacrosse channel, and they sort of come from the world of documentary film. So they're about piecing the editing together to tell a story. So when they do their interviews, like it's still the same concept as sitting down with the person doing interviews, but they will chop parts and rearrange them so it tells the most interesting and concise, or like emotionally drawn in, like something that's like emotionally compelling for the viewer. So they'll edit to their podcast. Whereas something like this is just like straight up, no editing, which is kind of like a fly on the wall style episode, I guess. So I'm coming back to our gigantic pause at the start. That's what kind of makes it beautiful. Like the awkwardness and the silence sometimes is like, just real shit.
Yeah. Well, it is like, it's nothing. Sometimes I'll get a comment and be like, oh, you speak so well. Well, sometimes, not always, but
to me.
Oh, no, just like in general, like you speak so well, like you know what it is that you're going to say, but it's just purely like just getting in that practice, like rolling off the cuff and everything as well. So yeah, it's just like one of those things where like we don't speak perfectly all the time, but just trying to, here I am.
You need to either control this screen or I'm going to have to do it.
I'm like mid-conversation trying to do it. I don't think it's going to be working.
This is a nightmare.
I know.
We'll be using Google Images background. Give it a try in a minute. Right. Don't let it distract you, but like make sure you're actually pressing the button right from now on.
I am.
For those listening, we are in our studio and we actually film these podcasts as well.
Yes.
And we normally have our Look Mum, I'm Hustling logo on the back screen, but the Chromecast is playing up today and Sarah is halfway through trying to tell an interesting point and halfway through clicking one button.
Yep. And Drew knows me quite well that I can't really do 2 things at once.
No, I'm just watching you fumble through all 3 jobs at the same time.
And I bet you click and it's going to work straight away.
It's fine.
No. All right.
Keep going.
Do a little casual reset and stuff. What was I even talking? Oh yeah, just like actually talking about trying to talk well. But it's just having that practice of just being able to like talk to each other and everything. It's just, trying to build up that vocabulary and try to keep up that rapport.
How
and
do you practice building up your vocabulary?
One is like reading. Reading's always a really good one to build it up. The more you read, the more words and stuff you'll come across, and the more things you'll, I guess you'll be like, oh, what does that word mean? You look it up and, you realize, 5 years later you're pronouncing it wrong because you've only ever read it and never spoken it out loud. Have you ever had words like that?
Give me an example.
Oh, wow. I can't even think of anything off the top of my head now. Just be like those strange words, like, I don't know, like colloquialism or...
Colloquialism?
Yeah. Or, I don't know. I can't think of any.
Keep going because you...
Yeah, because they're trying to just keep it rolling. How do you just have to turn it on and off again?
So the thing about finding... Like, I don't really find that many words. Like, I was really bad at English in high school.
Mhm.
I remember doing like a spelling bee. Wasn't it not even like in like the school or like a region or anything? It was just like literally in our class of 20 people, 20 kids.
Yeah, you'd have like spelling competitions.
And like for some reason, I just innately am good at spelling. Like, I don't know, like I always was stuck to English, but I just feel like I'm not a great writer. Like I can't structure things that well, but in terms of individual words, like I'm not, it's like not really like humble. Like it's just me being saying how I feel. Like a lot of the time, most things I kind of have a general idea about, even though I don't fully know what it is. I know there's part of my brain that has heard it before somewhere and can like piece the context together, if that makes sense. But sometimes I'll come across a weird word in a book or something. And I mean, I have that app Bookly, which I did a video on my YouTube channel, and you can just type in a word. If you're like reading, you can type in a word in there and it'll give you like a definition or something. So you can add like a catalog of different words you've learnt from that book and like reference back to them. And that way you're not like jumping across Google and going to 12 different websites or dictionary.com type things, and you're just getting the one word, or the app actually gives you the definition in there. And so you can like, I guess, just make a bank of new words that you've learnt. So that's what I sometimes do, but very rarely am I stumbled for like new words, like colloquialism. Like I couldn't spell it.
No.
That's probably one I can't spell or define, to be honest. So
Or define or definitely, like what's it? Whenever you're trying to like spell definitely, and then there's always like one or two like ways to spell it.
That's why like things like Grammarly, so good.
Or even just like something as simple
Every
as
time
like,
I'm like doing a description of this, I'm editing one of these descriptions that you write out for these pods. I'm just like, do you have Grammarly on your computer? Because
it should be on there.
It should have a lot of like little red squiggly lines here.
Also, it's the whole like spell check thing, like on your phone. Like, is it just really ruining our chance of, or like our skill of spelling in general? Or same as like using a calculator all the time, does it diminish your math skills?
Well, that's the spelling aspect. And then I guess in terms of, we talked about AI so many times now, in terms of AI, is that taking the human ability to like, rather than spell check, to sort of, I guess, structure check, to like, in terms of like, does what I'm saying make sense? Or like, you're going to get some sort of software or program to like kind of fill the gaps for you.
Yeah, like it does the job for you. So in that way, do you stop learning on how to do it and just do like the lazy way and be like, I want to write something like this. All right, fix it up.
Yeah. The calculator was a good point, because there was a time in school where you didn't need it. And then like, I think like year 7, they're like, get the Casio FX calculator, scientific calculator.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, it's cruisy from here on out. But then you start learning sine and cos, and you're like, you got to learn all these extra functions of the calculator. So yeah, I guess we need technology in terms of like the way the world is working these days. You kind of need it for everything. Like look at social media. You can't really run a business at like a grand scale these days without using it in some capacity, or at least a web page, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. You need like some sort of, I guess, branding space where people can reach out and get in contact with you and things like that. Usually it starts with a website, but a lot of people just have Instagram, or they have a Twitter, like just that sort of like low key, sort of more accessible, I guess, on the ground sort of level.
Minimum level is like website, and then minimum below that is just a sign on your lawn, like I sell eggs.
The ones that you see on the telephone poles and be like, I'll cut your lawn, or what was it, the work from home for $5,000?
Yeah, or there's just like one up the road, just like I don't know, for example, like Debbie's nails and hair, and you're like, there's no website link, or I can get prices, just like call this number. I'm like, no one's going to call your number for business. They want to like send you a private message in their own time, get some chatbot to reply to you. So like just those old ways of doing business, they're like,
well, that's how I find new businesses, or even just something as simple as like restaurants, right? Like if they don't have a way for me to sort of like suss it out to see if they're good or not, whether it's like reviews, menu, like photos, just say if it is a hair salon, then I'm probably not going to book with it. Like I want to be able to, I guess, stalk for a little bit and see what's going on, rather than just all you have is like a Facebook page that last got updated 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's true, because back in the day, it was word of mouth.
Yeah, or yellow pages or things like that. Like you would just have to look it up in the yellow pages and be like, all right, I'll give this one a shot.
Yeah, or your friend, like word of mouth, your friend would recommend. And I can't think of an interesting funny restaurant name right now, but you'd rely on someone else's past experience to determine if it was going to be something you're going to be interested in or not.
Mm-hmm.
And now I guess like the share function is our version of word of mouth.
Yes.
But there's also extra steps you can go down in terms of the rabbit hole for a particular business, say a restaurant. You can pick and choose which ones you like the photos of more. So there's like so much at play. Wow, why are we talking about businesses? But yeah, technology, I mean, it's the more integrated your business can get with certain technologies or new apps or softwares and things like that, I guess the more chance for success you have. So
yeah, well, it just gives you that level up because there's still people not doing it right. And those people that aren't doing it are going to get left behind, whether they're not doing social media or don't have a website or don't use AI to help them make like a better product or whatever it is. Like those people that are using technology are going to be like a step ahead at the end of the day.
And the crazy part is most of it's free. Like other than like paying for web hosting, your website, all these other apps are free. It's just a time commitment or a creative commitment to like whether producing videos or audio or text for any certain platform. Like it's free word of mouth. If your product's good enough, like a lot of it's like low hanging fruit. And like we struggle with this pod, for example, we do barely any promo, and the opportunities are pretty endless in terms of what we can do and where we can post things and get more reach for the show. But it's just like, it's almost too easy. It's just like a cop out because it's like we can go and do 100 posts this week for this podcast and cut promos, which will make the show grow because people are going to find out about it. But it's almost like, it seems like too good to be true almost. So you just almost don't act on it.
Yeah, where this is that concept to be like, well, this is the formula people say to take and you're going to be successful, but I don't know if it's going to work or not, so you don't even try.
Yeah, and it's also like, if you do it for like a week or two. It's like, it's consistency. It's kind of like marrying consistency with opportunity. There's probably some formula out there that some entrepreneurs come up with.
Nerdy person, yep.
But it's like we just don't take it. Like, think 100 years ago, I was listening to another podcast the other day. Can't remember what it was, but they're talking about like 100 years ago, you didn't have the option to just literally do whatever you wanted to do.
No.
Like what you can do within your small regional area before there was like international travel via plane. You had to like travel for months across sea to go somewhere, let alone interstate. Like you quite limited geographically to what you could do. If you're living in a rural farming area, it's not like you can go and become a fashion designer. Like obviously there's the exceptions, people break the mold and like leave their hometown, for example, but you're pretty limited in terms of your career path and what you're going to do in life. But now it's just like you want to design shoes, you want to create content, you want to just sit at home and invest in stocks all day. You want to, write. You can like, it's just like you can literally make a list of 100,000 things you can do now that you couldn't have done 100 years ago. And because of that luxury and that availability of choice, it's like we just don't go anywhere. It's like we're just stifled with too much choice and like nothing happens.
Yeah. So it's like when you have too many options to take, you just choose to do nothing instead.
Yeah.
But it could be like to do with the population thing. So just say 100 years ago, you'd have like the general store, which would be the grocer, the pharmacist or whatever it is. You'd have like that one person with the many hats. You'd have the single doctor in town. You'd have the, the single like clothing store that's in town.
But now everything's more specified and narrowed down and gone deeper into each. Like you just have a shoe store now, or you just have like a bag store. Whereas back in the day, like you'd have an all-in-one type of store.
All-purpose kind of thing. I guess because there just wasn't enough expertise like within that town or within that area that would be able to have, multiple storefronts. So one person would have to do it all.
Just not enough time to accumulate that experience and that knowledge base. Because you're trying to like cater to everybody at once, which is the way they used to do it back then. Because you hear the quote all the time, like you try and make a business or content for everybody, you end up making it for nobody because it's not targeted, which is it's true in a sense. But it's like, I think as time goes on, things get more not segregated, but like compartmentalized.
Like niche down.
Like think
in
about
a
how
way,
many pods you listen to. There's like realistically, you only need to listen to a couple of podcasts, but you get more specific ones. You can listen to a podcast about Survivor. You can listen to a podcast about the Australian version of Survivor. Then you can be another podcast about the first season of Australian Survivor. Like you can just keep going down into these little microcosms of communities, which is where the opportunity lies. You hear Gary Vee say all the time, like you can make content if you like the Smurfs, you can go and just create a side hustle or a whole business around your passion for Smurfs. 100 years ago, you couldn't do that shit, which is, it's exciting, but it's also super daunting at the same time if you don't really know what you want to do or just have like a clear direction of like the path you want to go down. It's sort of just, you just try everything. I don't know how we got into this conversation, but it's kind of, everyone's always talking about the same kind of thing all the time, is like niche down and like get specific and like have a targeted audience and avatar and make content for them. But I don't know, for me, I don't think it makes sense, but it's just
like too many things. Like
too many things.
Interests are way too broad. So then there's that counter argument that you be the niche instead. So you can either niche down a particular topic or you're the niche and you make content that you want to see, that you wish you could see, like content for yourself. And there's going to be other people out there that's going to want something similar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and it's like, and it's sort of, because I've been reading the, well, almost finished. I've got like probably like 10, 15 minutes left, but like the Rick Rubin book, right?
10, 15 minutes left of the audiobook?
Yes, of the audiobook.
How many hours?
I think it's like a 5-6 hour book.
So it's got like literally just the ouch.
It's probably just like the outro or like just the cliff notes or whatever it is. And he's like a big person or a believer of like you make the, you're right?
Well, he's a pretty big dude, yeah.
Yeah. So he's actually, for people that don't know, so Rick Rubin, so he's like a music producer. He co-founded Def
Jam.
Thank you. I was like, what's it? I was about to say Def Leppard. I'm like, no, that's a band. Def Jam Records. Very prolific in like the music producing space. But he's also kind of infamous for like not being able to play instruments or anything like that. Like he's purely like his ear, like his listening ability and his like intuition ability is like one of the things that he's most famous for. And what's like really credited to his success. And he's like, a big believer of just like being yourself, listening to yourself, like trusting yourself and your intuition. Don't make stuff for other people, make things for yourself that you want, kind of thing. Like it's like the whole creativity thing, right? Like if you start producing for other people, then it's not going to make you happy at the end of the day and it's not going to make you fulfilled at the end of the day because all you're doing is trying to fulfill someone else's need, right? Rather than just fulfilling that own creative need within yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like you read the book, like I can go on what I think, but you read the book. And like it ties into some stuff that I've been consuming lately. I've read a couple of books recently about writing. One is by Anne Handley about writing, and I'm reading another one now by Brenda. I forget her surname. It's like 20, 30 years old, but it's about basically writing and the act of writing and how similar to War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. It's just like doing the work, and work can mean like work or it can mean like basically art because the book's about War of Art, and doing what you love and not having the expectation that it's going to do anything or go anywhere, and just simply a form of expression. And I think the more time goes on, the more like I'm online, the more that sentiment is getting lost. Like for example, like YouTube, we've had YouTube channels for a couple of years now. We've made a bunch of different changes through channels and we had ideas come and go and areas of interest and stuff like that. But it's never really been from a self-fulfilled art point of view.
No, it's always been like a fuel the algorithm, get the clicks.
Partly. It's a lot of it is like not trying to game the algorithm, but like you're part of the process of making the art or the video. The algorithm plays some role, whether small or large or what percentage, it's up to you. Like it does factor into the decision-making process, which then may limit how good the piece of art is or the content is in terms of how you initially wanted to express yourself. So it's sort of, impedes the ability for like the true art expression to come out. Whereas like you don't really see that on other platforms. Like painters aren't like, how am I going to like increase the viewership of this piece of art or the amount of money it's going to sell for? Like they might, but it's the fact of, that's what's interesting about YouTube anyway. Like it's probably one of my favorite platforms. It's kind of art and algorithm combined.
Yes.
And like based on the Rick Rubin example and like the books I'm reading about writing, it's just about doing what you love and doing what you feel like doing in the moment, as opposed to trying to please someone else or trying to meet someone else's expectation. And that can be one person or it can be a million people. But it's like the more you start thinking about trying to optimize this and that for the sake of the reach that something has, and it's just taking like the level of true artistic freedom, I guess. Freedom's the main word there. It just keeps diminishing that every time you think about it. Like there's a part in the book that's talking about what's his Van Gogh, and like he literally sold like one painting in his lifetime, made like $50 or something, like made nothing. But he was just like, a lot of his paintings were just him wanting to express his love for something. He liked the view of like the starry night outside of his window, and like it wasn't like, how much money am I going to make off this? Who's going to see this art? I just want to express how good this view is, and then it ends up being something much greater down the line. But you have to come to these artistic things like with no preconceived notion and just purely speak from the heart, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's like Rick Rubin, like you're saying, he's based on intuition. Like he's produced so many different types of artists.
Oh, 100%. Like so many genres as well. Like he's just not like a...
But not once has he probably been thinking, how are we going to make a number one song, a number one album? It's just like, how can we make Aerosmith and Run DMC? How can we make this weird meld of genres work? He's just like trying to like think, how can I make this artistic expression unique, and how can we make it like work in a way that's never been done before? And like my point to like YouTube is like, that is like not really a thing, because the algorithm impacts your decision making.
I think it probably used to be a thing, right? So like when you sort of break it down, like YouTube's like filming, right? Like cinematography, even like movie making, all that kind of stuff is like based in an art form itself anyway. So even though YouTube now is very much algorithmic, it's very much like stats, like there's still that underlining, you need to be kind of creative anyway to be able to film something, unless if you're copying someone else. Casey Neistat's like one of our favorites, and he's very much still has that like artistic ability. Like he just wants to tell a story at the end of the day. And I guess you have like both sides of YouTube. You've got like that old school sort of vlog format where you're just trying to tell a story, be creative, show it in a creative way. And then you've got like the analytical, I guess, the money-driven, the maybe fame-driven sort of people that want to try and win on there, and then they're losing that creativity aspect.
It's whether you're focusing on, it's almost like story versus retention.
Yeah.
Like not in such clear, cut and dry, in like such a binary way, but like retention is like the winner, or like the key metric you want to win on YouTube. But like if you watch a movie on Netflix, they're not trying to win you over by retaining you for the movie the whole time. They're trying to get you to enjoy the story and
be invested in
the characters from the first part to the second part to the third part of the movie. They're not really like, what scene can I add here, and what B-roll can I add, or what graphic can I add, so they don't click off to another show. It's, if you were to like replace if like a YouTube creator's tried to make a movie and then a normal director tried to make a YouTube video, it's like they're just two different mindsets.
Yeah, 100%. And maybe because like YouTube's such, or not technically, but like traditionally a short format thing, you've got to be like quick to be able to compare. I mean, there's so many more YouTube videos out there compared to like movies in the universe, if you think about it, just because it's more accessible. So more accessibility just means more on that platform. Whereas like it's a bit harder to make film in that way. And I guess
the things like budget and mostly budget and time invested.
Yes.
So like I guess the competition is much greater on YouTube, which means it's a potentially lower hanging fruit.
Yes.
Which means more people want to try and compete. And then once they start getting into that world of competing, it's like, what tricks or hacks or hooks can I use to get me to win the race faster? And it's just like, this is what I'm saying. It's like it's taking the artistic expression out of a lot of it.
Well, 100%. There's the...
This is like broadly speaking. Like obviously there's probably a bunch of people on the platform that are doing super artistic stuff that we just haven't been aware of.
Yeah.
And even in podcasts, there's like nowhere to really inject it because it's just a conversation at the end of the day.
And a lot of like creative people talk about like competition and being competitive is going to make you not lose at the end of the day, but it's really going to impact that creativity. Like if you're out there just to purely be on top in spite of other people or in spite of other artists or in spite of other creators, when you do get to the top, then it's not going to be as fulfilling as someone who's in it for like the long haul, in it to like be able to support those around them and be like, I just want to be creative and make the things that I want to make and then let the cards fall where they may. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. But this is what I'm doing.
Yeah. That's what's tricky about YouTube. It's the allure because there is a potential bag of money behind the scenes if you do a good video. So what's driving the reduction in the art expression on YouTube? Because people want to like make a more catchy, retainable video, but why? Because if they do that, more views, and what do more views do? Potentially more money.
Yeah, it's that reinforcement aspect.
Yeah, it's just an interesting thing I've been thinking about because like we both want to like spend more time like writing, whether blogs or books or whatever. And it's not like when you're writing a blog, it's kind of like YouTube's the devil in the sense of those analytics and there's data that like can help you improve every week that you put a new video out. But with writing, it's like you're just trying to improve the skill. And yeah, there's still an element of that with making videos, but over time, there's like more and more thought goes into how to like retain the viewer, where it's like that mentality doesn't really seep into a lot of other art forms. Like if Taylor Swift's not thinking, how am I going to make them listen to the whole album all in one? She's just like, just went through a breakup. I want to make a banger song to represent that expression. Yeah,
it's more based on like feeling and emotions and I guess capturing like a moment in time. And that's like the huge contrast. And again, to like reference like Casey Neistat, he was talking about how his brother, like he does YouTube as well, like not as famous, but he just purely uploads and then doesn't even look at stats at all. Like he's just in that creative filmmaking sense. He'll just upload it and then not even look at it.
And that's not for everyone, obviously. Maybe just I'm in my older age and I'm sort of seeing through the fugazi of like just the downfalls of like trying to chase some like social media relevancy or popularity or virality.
Don't get me wrong, it'd be nice if one of our videos pop off and that, you know.
But then you kind of got to meet that expectation. The next time, then you're like, what worked about it? How can I incorporate more of what worked into my next video? And it just, I don't know, I'm not the most artistic person, but there's definitely like you can just imagine the joy decreasing every time that enters the equation.
Yeah. Well, that was another thing from...
So I've put up a link here if you want to rip into it. So we're deep into the conversation of the Creative Act.
Yes.
And then you listened to the audiobook of Rick Rubin. You didn't listen to the... Oh, you didn't read the book because it's hard to get?
Oh, yeah. It was unavailable for ages. And actually a kind of like cool thing about the book is like between the chapters, he's got like a monk dong kind of thing as if it's like separating like the chapters.
A what? A monk dong?
Yeah, like...
Speaking Vietnamese?
You know, like... It's like just like a big like dong, you know, but it's got like
a big dong.
Isn't that how they called dongs? What are they called?
Gong.
Gong. Sorry. Dong. A big gong. So it's just like...
Wish there was a big dong in this room.
That's embarrassing, but that's fine. That's another word that I probably get wrong all the time. Do you imagine if I'm just like talking at work and I'm like, you know, the big dongs? People are like, what?
Okay, just Get your mind
Call it back
off.
a bit.
Get your mind off the dong song. Dong song. It
Dong song.
could be a Cisco sequel. That dong, the dong dong dong
Song.
All right, let's enough about
All right.
dongs and more about Rick Rubin and his production of
Songs.
songs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Rhyming.
It's gonna lead a horse to water.
So this one here, it's just like 30 sort of takeaways from it. So it's just this particular one, 30 that like the whole book.
We're not going through all 30,
No. The whole book has so many. Actually, do you want to click on the other link that's there?
Sure thing, boss.
Yeah, thank you. That one's a little bit shorter, a bit bigger font to read.
More consensed dongage.
Yeah, more consensed.
Consensed.
Yeah.
Now you're messing up my words.
Sorry, exit out that. That's fine.
Breathe. Let's just have a quick break. I said the word consensed and it's not even a word. And then I added dongage to the end.
Yeah.
I think we're both just scrambling each other's brains right now.
Probably.
Is that AJ doing okay for you?
It is. Thank you. How's your Red Bull going? When was the last time you had a Red Bull?
Probably 6 years. And it's impacting my ability to
Can't wait for that sugar crash.
focus. But I did get that button to work on that phone. So
You
I'm
did,
pretty
yeah,
proud
and
of
it
that.
hasn't
All
failed
right. So
yet.
this is from getstoryshots.com. So what's this, like a book summation website?
Yeah, pretty much. They just do a lot of book reviews and everything.
Cool. So 11-minute read. Damn, that's
We'll be quick.
fucking 2% of the entire book. So this is from getstoryshots.com and it is a summary of Rick Rubin podcast. So tell me where you want me to
Rick
scroll
Rubin
to.
podcast or Rick Rubin, a creative act.
He does
Yeah.
have a podcast as well though now.
He does. Yeah, sorry, that was a big. I didn't mean that one.
That's
so
not
did
what I
it again.
meant, but he
Yeah.
does have one. It wasn't factually incorrect.
No, yeah, yeah, he does that, and he's just like interviewing other creatives, pretty much, and just trying to get their insight and everything, which is always really interesting.
All right, so what am I going to?
So if you just wanted to scroll up a little bit, so about Rick Rubin, just a little backstory if people don't know who he is. He's like this big bearded dude. You're gonna bring up for those that are watching. We can
Everyone's watching.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to see.
see the version. Yeah, so he's just a bearded dude. He looks very eccentric, right?
Downplaying his existence. Just a bearded dude.
The bearded dude. Look at those eyebrows.
What's wrong with them? They're
Very
pretty
bushy.
normal looking.
Okay.
His beard and his hair's bushy. His
Yeah.
eyebrows are perfectly groomed.
It's super
They're
zoom.
pretty normal eyebrows.
Okay.
Chill
All right.
out.
Super normal. All right.
Yep,
Go
I
back.
think so anyway.
Yeah, go back to the article. Thank you. And he's worked with so many different artists, so like Johnny Cash, Jay-Z, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Ed Sheeran, Lady Gaga, Kanye West. So he's been working with a lot of people from a lot of different genres. And he's won a lot of awards and everything as well. So he's just for underground music and creative innovative sound is what they say. Making new stuff. But there's a few key takeaways from it. So he says that everyone is a creator, which is a pretty interesting concept. He's like, everybody has the ability to be creative. Everyone has that sort of spark within them to ignite, to be able to go on a creative journey.
And I'll just quickly add into that. This is, it seems, like if you're not a creative person, it's like, oh, I'm not creative. Like what? Like that's bullshit. That's such bullshit. But it's something they touch on, or Stephen Pressfield touches on in War of Art as well. Like, doesn't say it in the same words, but it's the same sentiment. Everyone is a creator. It's just like you just can't turn creativity on and like, let's go stop this pot. I want to go be creative and do a painting.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be part of your
workflow process.
or routine. You have to work on becoming. Same as you have to work on getting muscles. You have to work on being a creator or being creative. Creativity for very few people can just like switch on creativity.
Yeah.
If you're like, let's use Taylor Swift as an example. She's not going in the studio. She's not like finishing a world tour. Like I'm going to have a month off, then I'm going to start writing an album. And then day one of she's just like got to bang a song. She's spending weeks or months collaborating, doing ideas. Like it's time spent consistently a little bit every day to get to a place where then you do have creative things come out. And a lot of the time, especially with War of Art, is like 90% of it's going to be rubbish. And then 1% of the time or 10% of the time, you're going to have something golden come out, but you wouldn't have gotten to that without doing all the shit work first.
Oh.
And I'm not sure if that's something that he talks about here, but like I'm just backing up the idea that everyone is a creator, but it takes effort and a lot of shit creations first.
No, 100%. It's be like, obviously there's like a 1% of people. So just say if you're a pianist, for example.
A what?
Say a guitarist, for example.
You've gone from dong to penis.
No, pianist is like
Pianist.
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 Pianist. It's pianist. Yeah.
I'm just hearing
I know, weird words.
I'm just hearing phallus.
Yeah, just say learning an instrument, for example. You have like 1% of people that are just naturally attuned to it, right? They can pick it up and just play it. But most of the time, and most of the population would have to practice at it to become amazing.
Of course.
Yeah, and that's what like
unless you have like a brain aneurysm or a car crash, and then immediately you wake up, you're speaking Spanish, and then you're doing Beethoven.
Yeah, exactly. Those very rare circumstances, but most of the time you have to work at it to be good. You have to work at it to, you know, be able to write a song and all that kind of thing. And this is what it is. Like you don't. Yes, some people can be creative right off the bat, right? They're just like super talented, but most of the time people have to work at being that creative. So. Yeah, a lot of times it doesn't come naturally. You just have to, it's like a, you know, like a job, being a carpenter or whatever. You don't, you know, you can't make tables straight away. You practice at making banger tables.
Do you want me to just like scroll?
We can keep scrolling, yeah. This one is living life as an artist. So a bit what you're saying about Stephen Pressfield. This one is just doing the practice. So living life as an artist is a practice. You are engaging in it or not engaging in it. So either you're doing it or you're not doing it, and that's your choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it very much ties into the work.
And it's almost like even if you're not doing it, you can still be either thinking about it or taking inspiration from other aspects of life. So then when you sit down to do the thing, you've got a bit more in terms of resources or ideas pulled from other aspects of 100%. Life. So it's just saying here, it's a way of perceiving, requires a practice of paying attention to perceive subtle notes and feelings in your environment. And that doesn't have to be in the moment of creation. That can just be in everyday life that flows over into when you are trying to do the creative thing. And creativity, I mean, it's so vast. You can be creative and build a business. You can be creative and do the lawns. Like, not as much, but you can.
There's lawn artists out there, you know, that win, you know, the neighborhood not the neighborhood competitions, but they win like, you know, but it was the Garden magazine, like Gardens Award, you know, and they've got like, you know, the round hedges or whatever it is.
Well, I'm building my website at the moment, and like that's not really art. It is web design, and
it's got a creative aspect to it.
Design is still art, so it's it doesn't just this doesn't just apply to like a musician or a painter. Like this applies to like so many things in life.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, like being creative doesn't just mean like you're saying in the art format. You could be a just trying to think like a creative mathematician.
Like a business consultant and still have creative ideas about problem solving.
100%.
Like,
yeah. It's just about thinking outside of that normal sphere of everyday stuff.
All right, I'm just going to skip through headlines or...
Look inwards. So that's inner world. So every bit is beautiful and surprising. And it's about being connected. So it's about like, just trusting yourself. So he has an analogy of like, just think about how many shades of green exist in trees of a single forest, or how many colors you find in the ocean's fish. Even a small fraction of natural world provides limitless number of unique variations, colors, and sequences. So it's just that, you know, within yourself, you got so many more options as well, which is pretty interesting. Like it's just, if you think you're bored and you have no inspiration, like just look around, look inside yourself. There's something there. You just have to be open to it.
Yeah. There's always more under the surface. You just have to get okay with being uncomfortable, not having it figured out. Like journaling, for example, I do the morning pages, 3 pages a day, not all the time. Like sometimes it's 1 page, but those 3 pages, that first page just flows out. The second and third page of that morning journaling, where it's just flow of consciousness, just jumble of thoughts. The second and third page is where you're like, oh, like there's more to the surface. There's more complicated thoughts here, more complex ideas here that I wouldn't have gotten out if I stopped at page 1. So it's kind of a small tangent, but there's always more under the surface if you allow yourself to get uncomfortable a bit more and push yourself, which ties into the consistency of doing things frequently. It's probably a lot of cliche type of advice, but it's important to remember.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, it's like and this is coming from someone who's like known to be a massive creative. If he's giving this advice, then it's obviously working for him, because there's that thing that he could have just wrote a tell-all book about all the artists that he worked with, but he chose to write a book about being creative.
Yeah, because that's what I mean, he could do a whole book about tones and production tips and like the art of music production, but he's wants to help more people at a wider like range of in a wider range of realms, basically. This Red Bull's really I don't know what it's done to me.
That other one was trust your intuition, which was sort of touched on anyway. So that's just trusting yourself, trusting your
thyself.
Yeah, thyself, trusting thyself, your opinions, which ties into this one, which is don't let doubt hinder your creativity, because that doubt and that fear can really stop you from pursuing your dreams or pursuing the path that you want to do. It can really hinder you from getting anything done, really. Like, and I know I get like doubt a lot. Like I always doubt like my ability, which is sort of like why I started reading this book, because I'm like, am I even a creative person? Like, what is creativity? Can I even tap into it? Or am I just like a boring, like everyday, like normal type person? But in this kind of thing, like everybody's creative, and that's just like doubt just playing in my mind. That's just that little voice of being like, you can't do it, or you're not good enough.
What's funny is I guarantee 95% of people that you would deem creative, the top 20 actors, the top 20 musicians, the top 20, like whatever, artists, Banksy, they've all had that feeling at some point and probably still do all the time. And the doubt, probably a lot of it comes from no previous examples of success.
Right. Yeah.
So then you doubt if you're even capable. It's the capability thing. But then even if you do have, like you're saying before, like having a viral video would be awesome. Even if you do have one moment of success, then you're going to doubt if you can do it again.
Yes.
Like the doubt just applies to where you've pushed success to that line. If that kind of, it's a weird analogy. It's Red Bull's like fucking with me. But like you're pushing the envelope every time almost. And it's like, you just doubt if you can like go above and beyond what you did last time almost. And if what you've done previously was nothing, then you're like, can I even like get from like step 0 to step 1?
Yeah. Like it can really stop you from even progressing over that like first hurdle. Like it's all about what hurdles you come across and what's going to stop you from like doing anything at all. So it's just that knowing that you're going to have that doubt in there. And even it comes to what's that like term when you imposter syndrome and stuff like that. You have so many people that have that sort of aspect because they don't believe they're good enough. But it's just knowing that you're going to have that doubt and then just being like, just ignoring it, just doing what you want to do anyway.
Yeah. Well, imposter syndrome is tying you back to like the Stephen Pressfield thing as well as I was trying to do it again. Hierarchy. Fuck, what's that word? Hierarchy. I can say hierarchy.
Yeah.
But hierarchical.
Yeah.
Versus territorial. Like if you consider yourself like on like a vertical plane of like success, like a corporate ladder, for example, is like there's a hierarchy you would need to like compare and compete against, versus territorial is more just finding your own lane.
Yes.
Where no one else can like compete with you. So like the imposter syndrome aspect comes from comparison against what others have done and what they've done that's successful in your eyes. But the person sitting next to you might think that's a shit level of success or not good enough or doesn't even equate to them as being successful at all. So it's just this whole world of doubt and confusion. And it kind of ties into what we're saying at the start of the episode is 100 years ago, you didn't really have these options to even get this nitty gritty with like the self-doubt and the anxiety and the confusion. Like it was just like, go to your job, do your hard labor and go home, provide for your family. You didn't have this world to like look upon
and compare yourself and stuff too.
It's just, it's wild to think it's a like a 21st century problem. And it's a very new problem in like humanity, I guess. It's like, there's so many things you can do, and there's also so many things that can stop you from doing things if you allow them to.
Yeah, very true.
It's just like super like heady type of conversation.
Yeah. Like imagine if it just like simply be like, what are you going to do for the rest of your life? Oh, I'm just doing the family business, you know? That's my path.
Yeah, I'm just, I'm a blacksmith.
Yeah.
You're not worrying about how good you are as a blacksmith, or you probably are trying to get better as being a blacksmith, but you're not worrying about the guy 5 towns away because you don't even know he exists.
No, he's not even in your like realm of things to worry about.
Yeah.
It is very much a 21st century problem.
100%.
Yeah. Like just having all the options.
Well,
like
this is what I was saying the other week. We're getting coffee and we're talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And like at the base level, you have food, shelter, like warmth. Is like you have that covered and like you're just existing.
Mm-hmm.
Above that, you have things like, I can't remember, there's like three or four or 5 levels. But above like food and shelter is like the basic bare minimum things you need to survive.
Mm-hmm.
At the top is like purpose.
Yeah.
So if we're at a point now where like food and shelter for the most part, obviously we're very fortunate to live in Australia, or if you're in the US or somewhere like that where you're literally in the top 1% of humans that have ever existed in terms of wealth and abundance and everything like that. If all we have to worry about is our purpose in life, like we're fucking so fortunate.
Oh yeah, it's so privileged. Like these are the things that we're worrying about. We're not worried
literally
about.
The last thing you can, like the top of the spear, what you can worry about is like your purpose and like your reason for existing. 100 years ago, you're just like, can we like catch a rabbit? Probably more than 100 years ago. But can we catch this food to like eat tonight? It's just crazy to think or imagine living in any other time than we are right now.
Yeah.
Like,
just the accessibility and like the privilege. It's pretty like very fortunate, very lucky.
And it's so easy to just like forget about it as well.
Yeah. That's why this is a very weird side note, but like gratitude journaling or just like having those moments of gratitude is really important because it just puts things into perspective. Like we're very lucky to be living in a place that we live in and being able to have access to the things that we do have access to, and even to have like conversations about what is creativity, like just having that freedom to be like, you know what, I think I want to be creative for a while.
Yeah, if we have the ability to think about doing art in some form, and then second of all, have the ability to actually do so there's like three layers. If we have the ability to think about doing art, because everything else in life is like sorted, is one thing. That's pretty privileged. To actually do the art is like another level of privilege. And then to stress about your self-doubt for being shit at the art that you have the luxury of doing, it's just like mind blown, like how petty a lot of these thoughts that we are allowed to control our lives actually are. Like it's so crazy.
No, 100%, because even just, and that's the whole thing of like the starving artist, right? Is like being comfortable, like, because knowing that a lot of the times that art that you want to produce is not going to make any money in the long run. So it's just having that ability and that security, knowing that if it doesn't work out, then so be it.
Yeah, man, I want to go and paint some stick figures right now.
Is that video even still available where we like painted like Bob Ross?
It's probably on private because it's just embarrassing.
It's a super bad one. All right. Well, maybe later in a few years we'll reveal or react to it again and see how bad it is.
Bob Ross painting challenge.
Another interesting thing he sort of talks about is breaking through the creative block. Whether you're a writer, a painter, a musician, whatever it is, you're always going to come across like up to moments where you just like get frustrated that you're listening to the same thing over and over again and it just doesn't sound right, or you're trying to like you stare at a blank piece of like paper and you can't even write something, or you're staring at a canvas and like nothing's coming to your mind for like inspiration. And he just really talks about different ways to stop like fixating on that and just break free and just take a moment for yourself and just to reboot and just to rethink so you can come back to it with like fresh eyes.
I've heard another way of thinking about this. I forget what the actual line was or who said it, but it's not a creative, like it is a creative block, but another way of thinking about it is a block on you allowing yourself to just be shit for a little bit.
Like it's almost like
you can still create something, and it'll be shit. But it's the fear of like not making something good initially. So you're allowing that to like be a total creative block. People don't have like a shit creative block because you can always produce shit creative stuff.
Yeah. So it's almost like giving yourself that permission to fail. Be like, all right, I'm going to fail. It's going to be crappy.
Ruin the canvas. Yeah. Write a couple of shit paragraphs.
Like just get it out of your system in a way. Just like get it out, even if it's like a year long of just like not being able to produce anything. As long as you're doing the work and doing the process and like showing up every day, there's going to be whether it's the needle in the haystack, the gem in the gold mine or whatever it is, like you're going to come across something that's going to be worth it.
So you're going to say dong in the haystack then?
No, I could have. Moment lost, I'd say. Lost opportunity.
It's fallacy.
Fallacy. That's a good one.
Story short 7.
Yes. Here are 10 small steps for shaking up your process. So this is like, if you do have a block or you get stuck. And this is actually quite common, or so there's quite common knowledge or popular for like people just in that creative space, whether you're a writer or things like that. You yawned this time. I did yawn.
I was like, I'll make it. I'm yawning, so I'll make it
obvious.
Abundantly clear. Yeah. So 10 small steps for shaking up your process. So a few ideas to consider. Take small steps. If you're feeling blocked, try writing 1 sentence every day. So we just said like, just be shit for a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. Just like it's just that showing up thing. I think even James Clear sort of talks about it. If you have a routine, just even do a little bit of that routine, even if you can't do the full length of it.
Very powerful. That's something that I've been implementing more recently, and it helps a lot because I want to read for an hour every day. I want to exercise for an hour every day. I want to like do all these things that are like an hour every day. And sometimes you just push to the limit and you can't get to it. So instead of like disregarding the entire hour, just do whatever percentage of that you can. So rather than reading for an hour, working out for an hour, it's like instead of losing the streak entirely, continue the streak, just do it at a smaller scale. Just do 20-minute workout and 15-minute reading. It's better than nothing, which is what I usually do, and what people most probably do is just skip the entire thing entirely. So it's like if you just had to imagine like a bunch of streaks in a row, just like rather than being full circles filled in, just like fill them in where you can.
Yes.
That's helped me a lot get things done and not beat myself up about not being able to do the thing. I've just done it at a smaller degree than what I would like to.
Yeah. So same goes for like, if you're a writer, you just write a sentence a day or something like that, just to try and get back.
If you want to write 700 words, just try and do 50 words and then
come back at it again tomorrow. Yeah. Change your environment. So that's always not a popular one, but it's just, a pretty well-known one as well. So you go to a new place, you can rearrange the room that you're in. So you study, so whether it's the furniture, you experiment with different lighting. It's just about shaking up that environment. And it's more just like getting yourself out of your own head in a way, because you're just staring at the same 4 walls or the same like decor. Like you just, if you usually write at home, go and write in a park or go to the local library and write there instead. It's just about changing that environment aspect.
Change the stakes. Imagine that this is the last time you'll ever do your work, then do it.
Ooh, so it's almost like creating yourself a deadline in a way.
It's just like, if you're going to die tomorrow, this is the last chance to do the thing.
Yeah.
Like, how's that going to impact how you approach the actual task?
100%.
It would very differently, I'd imagine.
Yeah. And that would alter your perspective, which goes into the next one. So try doubling the font of the pages, increasing the volume of the song you're listening to, changing sensory. So he's big on like sensory aspects, whether it's visual, audio. It's just about, just changing like slightly to see if it resonates different with you if you pick up something else instead. Play with the imagery. So you're adding visuals, using like new images that you wouldn't normally use, and see what that does to your mind. So it's almost like you're trying to like kickstart that creative aspect by like just like changing these slight little things in your environment.
By breaking the monotony or the routine. Like the routine helps in terms of getting the creative flow going, but sometimes it can stifle it as well. So like what can you add or remove or change or adjust to like, just have a new, like a different background color might make the conversations different. Like who knows? It might not do anything, but it's worth a try. Yeah,
it's like setting the mood, setting the tone, or changing the mood and changing the tone.
Maybe we should have a candle here next time.
Oh, set the mood.
Or 2 Red Bulls.
Yeah. Build brick by brick. So craft your idea into a reality by building it gradually. So whether that's like, I think for me, like mind mapping or doing dot points or things like that is just one way to I guess, build on it. So like when I'm trying to write a YouTube video, I'll start off with dot points and then I'll expand on those dot points.
Test your ideas.
So rather than relying solely on your imagination, putting your ideas to a test, so conducting small experiments, and it's trusting your instincts to identify the strongest one. So he has a big one. Just say if he has 2 versions of a song, right? You'd play both of them and you just pick the one that you think is better, slightly better, or things like that. But if you're still undecisive, toss a coin and then just go with it. But if you have even that little bit of doubt, be like, oh, I wish it was the other one, you go for the other one.
Yeah, I've got so many parallel thoughts from different things I've learned or listened to in the last year or two. And to make decisions easier, not sure who said this, just give yourself the 2 options and then pick which one's best. And then let's say a song, right? We're going to like have instruments and you have a verse and then a chorus and a verse and you have lyrics. It's just like you're presented with 2 options, do what's the best one and then move on from there. And then 2 seconds later, you're going to be presented with like, do I put keyboards in this key or do I have a guitar in this key? Is this next? Okay, choose what's best. And then just like, you're just building like a little diagram or like a family tree type of scenario where it's just like going down, choosing the best one, moving down the list, choosing the next one. And that sort of removes that doubt because you're just constantly adding and making things better as opposed to trying to think of all of it as a whole.
Yeah. No, and that's just like, that's what he's saying. So it's just that slow building blocks of just making something or putting something together.
Piece by piece. Well, that was brick by brick kind of. Brick by brick, like you were saying.
Vary your input, so boost your creativity, explore different sources of inspiration. So that's, very much like watch a movie, play different songs, play the same song, discover art of a lucid dreaming. That's an interesting one. Try new things to spark your imagination. Yeah, so he's very much like a very spiritual sort of dude as well. So a lot of this is just based on...
So he's not really set in his ways. He's like super comfortable and just doing fucking anything, just trying anything different.
100%. Yeah, like he's just so open to new things that he's almost like fluid, I guess.
It seems like too much almost.
It's almost like very unstructured in a way. Like he's very much like based on intuition. He's like, that's better. Yep, go for that one. I like that one more. It's more just accumulative.
I mean, he's successful for a reason. He's known as one of the great producers.
Like he's just...
It's hard, like for me anyway, to imagine being that free. It sounds very appealing and attractive.
Yeah, just to have like... just that, not assertiveness, but just really trusting yourself and your opinion.
All right, let's wrap up these last 2.
Yep.
Set a deadline.
So again, that's very much like, especially this would be good for people like me who are procrastinators, is like set that deadline and just be fully aware of it. And then practice awareness and gathering new seeds of ideas for your next project.
Yep.
And that's like a big thing as well. So when you're like finishing off a project, start planting seeds for the next one before that one's even done, so you can roll straight into it.
Very important, rather than getting in that doubt zone. And then finally, probably the most important point to like summarize his book anyway, and in this podcast at least, is make art for the sake of making art. Avoid forcing your art to fit a particular cause or message. And that kind of ties into like the YouTube thing we're talking about at the start of the episode.
Yeah.
It's just do it for the sake of doing it, as opposed for the sake of potential reward, potential outcome, revenue, money, notoriety, virality. All that stuff is like irrelevant, because a lot of that stuff will basically stop you from getting better at your art and take the joy away from making art. So make art for the sake of making art, and we will make this podcast for the sake of making this podcast
because we want to, and we're passionate about it, and we don't care if you don't like it or review it, but please do that. That would be awesome.
All right, we'll make this podcast happen next week. Thank you guys for listening.
Bye.
Episode 70 coming up a couple of weeks now. So.
Yeah, it is. It's really, really soon. Yeah, appreciate you all. The 66?
Not 69 quite yet. No. I mean, that would have been a good dong integration type of episode.
It would have been, but no, number 66.
66, all right.
Yeah, all right. Thanks, everybody. See ya.
Bye.